Finishes and factions catching action.
Hello there, everybody. Thank you for tuning in to Finishers and Factions does Tuesday Night NXT. This is the NXT episode from the 25th of March from Orlando, Florida, and the WWE Performance Center. For those of you that have never watched the podcast previously, my name is Adam. I'm normally joined by Rich, who can't be here this evening. Some other things have come up, but you'll just have to make do with me. And we are so privileged this evening to be having not one, not two, but three different title defenses on this card. Two of them are involving the same superstar. That's right, you heard it. We've got Stephanie Vaquer, our newly crowned double champion, doing double duty in a double title defense this evening. We've got her defending her NXT title, which she won more recently against Jada Parker, and we finally have been given Fallon Henley's rematch for the North American title, which Stephanie Vaquer is also the holder of. So now you are all caught up, we will get straight into the action, which basically started with a VT promo explaining exactly what I've just said. We then go into the first match, which is the Women's NXT Championship match, which is, as I mentioned already, Stephanie Vaquer versus Jada Parker. Now, this match, obviously Jada Parker has been doing some fantastic work down in NXT more recently. We've seen some fantastic work from her, and despite all of that, the crowd in the Performance Center on this particular evening seemed to be really behind the our NXT Women's Champion. I mean, after that match from last week, who can really blame them? Let's face it. But it's also mentioned during this match that apparently nobody has ever been able to successfully defend two different singles titles on the same night. Now, I didn't do a massive amount of research into this to find out whether that's true. Of course, if it isn't, feel free to at us on Twitter or send us an email. Just look up Finishers and Factions podcast. You will find us. We are there. So, yeah, crowd seemed to be really behind Stephanie Vaquer during this match. And do you know what? Some superstars might be tempted to go half-cocked into the first of two challenges when they are forced to do sort of double duty. Not Stephanie Vaquer. She put her heart and soul into this first match, and both women gave as good as they got. Vaquer sort of going more towards a wear them down sort of job, so it was very much a case that she was using a lot of submission holds. We saw her with a leg lock trying to wear Parker down. Vaquer even manages to get a triangle lock over the top rope, and just generally trots out the Vaquer classics, the Punisher, where she's smashing somebody's face into the mat, and one of Booker T's personal favourites. But Jada Parker herself came up with a broken arrow for a 2 count. Now, this all seemed to go a little bit wrong for Jada Parker when we found that Jordan Grace had come out for a distraction. She didn't physically get involved. It was just a distraction, but it was enough to have Parker distracted enough for Vaquer to pick up the win with a small package pin maneuver, which isn't a bad way to win. I mean, you win by any means necessary, I suppose. But that is Vaquer's first match done and done. She retains her title. Now, this doesn't end here, as Jada and Jordan start scrapping on the entrance ramp. Obviously, Jada's not very happy at the fact that Jordan has come in and ruined her match. Now, not to leave the champ out here, but we then see Fatal Influence. This is Fallon Henley, JC Jane, and Jasmine Nix invade the ring and basically put a beat down on our double champ, which is bound to have some ramifications for her match later in the evening. Now, we jump out of the ring and into backstage, where we see Trick Williams, who promptly gets confronted by one bouncy Javon Evans, who's not feeling all too bouncy during this interaction, as he's just a bit sick and tired of being pushed to the one side all the time. I mean, he is one of the youngest superstars on the roster, and yeah, I think Trick Williams really treats him as such. It's I think the fact that you've managed to make it into the WWE at 20 years old is enough kudos to be able to say, do you know what, actually, yeah, you're still a rookie, you're still still got a lot to learn, but you've obviously learnt enough to make it here, kid. But Trick Williams has gone on record many a time and said that he's out for himself. He's focused on Oba. He's focused on the NXT title and getting that back. As we know, he just has not been the same since returning or losing that title at New Year's Evil. Now, Javon Evans has just been trying to warn, or was trying to warn, after the underground match, Oba Femi and Trick Williams, about Dark State, which is the mysterious foursome we found have been running rampant in NXT recently. We're still not sure of who they are. They haven't been officially identified just yet, although as soon as we know, you guys will know, of course. But yeah, this is Trick and Evans having it out over last week, and Evans, for all of his youthful bluster, basically goes on record and says, do you know what, Trick, for how focused you've been on the NXT title, I managed to take out Oba Femi no issue last week. As we know, he came in and well and truly put the champ down last week after the NXT Underground match, after the Dark State invasion, and everything else. It was a case that if you managed to miss that, then I challenge you to say you weren't watching NXT last week. But it's all sort of comes to a head where Trick Williams starts being, in my view, quite condescending towards the young Javon Evans, in the sense that Javon Evans has never held a singles title in WWE. He's obviously been just focusing on getting the craft right, which is all important. We all know this. It's a case that we've got to get the craft right to get everything else right. So yeah, it's a case that Evans has got a title match for the Heritage Cup Championship against Lexus King later on this evening, and he will go on to have that match. Now, Trick Williams still keeps going with this and says, look, until you've competed for a title, until you've held a title, you're really not going to understand why it is that me having the NXT title and losing the NXT title has had such a detrimental effect on me. Basically, I feel like Trick Williams has just been antagonising Javon Evans at this stage, when realistically we would have expected a little bit more. Now, we go from there into another backstage promo, which sees Ava and the rest of the women's division, obviously having watched Stephanie Vaqueur's first NXT title defense, on a monitor in the back. And yeah, it seems that Lash Legend after Ava announces, I'm going to go and check on Stephanie, our double champion, which, of course, the general manager should be doing. The Meta Girls, or more specifically, Lash Legend, says, actually, I think what you need to be doing is focusing more on why Gigi Dolin and Tatum Paxley have got a title match on TNA this week. What's going on with that? And this just screams of some out-and-out jealousy. Now, we've seen in the women's division a lot of Sol Ruka and Zarya over the last few weeks. And now we've got the re-entrance of Jakara Jackson and Lash Legend, the Meta Girls, as well as Dolin and Paxley. Both phenomenal teams in their own right. We'll never, ever put that sort of past them, but basically, this question seems to spark some real chaos in the women's division, which when you've got so many superstars in general, it doesn't matter whether it's male or female, it is a case that they are going to be combustible elements, which will blow at any moment. From there, as that sort of erupts into chaos, we are then taken to a pre-recorded promo. So this isn't live, this was pre-recorded, where we see Vic Joseph interviewing Ricky Saints. Now, myself and Rich over the last few weeks have been saying that Ricky Saints, we're not really seeing what the big deal is for him. Now, I will admit that I've never seen any of what Ricky Saints did before he came to WWE, so I've got a fresh view of what he is doing and what he does, and so far, just thoroughly not impressed. Fantastic mic work, can't fault his promo ability, but his in-ring ability is just leaving a little bit to be desired. Or a little bit to be desired for myself anyway. Now, this was basically a get-to-know-you session for Ricky Saints. This gave me a lot of information about him that I wasn't aware of, more so to do with his personal life than his professional career, which I suppose I'm going to have to go away and figure that out all on my own. But yeah, he feels that his arrival, while a lot of people are saying that Ricky Saints doesn't belong, and I suppose I'm one of them, it's a case that we're seeing, or he feels that his presence is forcing everybody that was sort of quite happily tootling along before to really raise their game. And do you know what? I suppose, yeah, we have seen an elevation in competition between some of the more prominent superstars up to this point. Now, he does go on to say, or sort of gives the impression to me that he's trying to look for a little bit of sympathy. He's trying to reach out to the heart of the universe, or heart of the WWE universe at least, by saying about the fact that in his early career he was living in his car, which isn't uncommon for people in the wrestling industry to start off on the balls of their ass, for them to rise to great heights. And yeah, nobody in the wrestling industry is handed their spot apart from a very small number. But even then, a lot of them who are second, third, the odd fourth generation superstar is not completely without. They're not handed their spot. They're not told that here's your spot. We're going to start you off on $2 million a year because of who your dad was, or who your granddad was, or who your uncles were. It's a case that they have to work, fight, earn, bleed, and sweat for every last thing they get. Now, at this stage, we see none other than Sean Spears interrupt and actually physically take over the interview from Vic Joseph at this point. And Spears and Saints obviously have a lot of history between the two of them. They're not unknown characters to one another, and it really shows in how they interacted with one another in this segment. And one of the first questions that Shawn Spears really asks about or to Saints is, why is it you think I never asked you to be part of the culling? Now, I think it's pretty obvious from Ricky Saints' reaction to this question that part of the reason he was never going to get that offer was probably because there's some bad blood between Saints and Spears. Now, I'm just theorising. We know a little bit about Shawn Spears' past career and not much else from there. But it's a case that, Saints reckons that he wasn't given the opportunity because he would have told him to go and stick it up his arse with the rest of the shite. A little bit of back and forth after that. But Saints basically declares that he's coming for Spears' brand new North American title. And that's the title that Ricky Saints has set his heart and his eyes on. Which, yeah, fair enough. Do you know what? Have at it, kiddo. I say that Ricky Saints is probably a little bit older than I am, so calling him kiddo feels a bit condescending. But then we cut to the locker room where Wes Lee, Tyson DuPont, and Tyreek Igwe are watching the interview, and they don't seem overly impressed with Ricky Saints from the get-go. They've had a bit of an issue with him since they came in, but Wes Lee is very much one of these people that is saying, oh, well, you're an outsider, I really don't see why you should have to come in, and all the rest of it. It just feels a bit unnecessary. And yeah, do you know what? I can sort of understand why. I can sort of understand all the trepidation around it. But seriously, dude, get over yourself. There is always a bigger fish. Now, Tyreek and Tyson have a match later on in the card, so they go off to go and prepare for that. This leaves what I felt was actually quite a haunted looking Ethan Page. Now, the last time we saw Ethan Page properly, he was having his ass handed to him by the bouncy one, Javon Evans. And since then, haven't really seen much of him at all. It's a case that he's been very much off radar. But Ethan Page is in the locker room along with Andre Chase, who is somebody else we've seen even less of. Cale Dixon and Uriah Connors as well. As Dixon basically accuses Ricky Saints of pulling an Ethan Page. We know that Ethan Page is his moniker, his nickname, whatever you want to call it, is All Ego Ethan Page. And yeah, so far that I've seen of him, he really lives up to that name. Realistically, it's not a case that he's without ego at all. Now, Ethan Page obviously takes great exception to this and threatens to basically put Dixon's lights out if he doesn't shut his trap. So shut your trap, talk shit, get banged, I think is the turn of phrase I'm going to go with on that one for it. And Uriah Connors tries jumping in to Dixon's defense to basically be sat back down, little boy, by Ethan Page. And this is where, out of character for what we've seen recently, Andre Chase gets involved and very much jumps to the defense of his followers, as Connors and Dixon have very much been Andre Chase's little shadow cheerleaders, whatever you want to call them. They've been there and they've been supporting him, which is great for Andre Chase, as he definitely seems to have been in a bit of a funk since the collapse of Chase U, which we've discussed in an earlier episode. Now, this basically all boils over Paige telling Chase to teach them that their actions and words have consequences, and this sort of pushes Paige past boiling point, or more so making Paige making a comment about Chase U being a defunct institution, which I suppose isn't wrong, considering it was closed. But this this well and truly sparks the fire in Andre Chase, and basically Chase to lay down a challenge to Ethan Page, which again we see later on in the card. Now, this brings us nicely to the second match of the night, which is a men's tag team match featuring Hank and Tank versus Tyson DuPont and Tyreek Igwe. Now, Hank and Tank have a little bit of a pre-match promo on their way to the ring, where they're very much sort of hyping themselves up. Whatever these guys are on, I want some sort of thing, because they've got way more energy than I've ever had. But it's a case that they even get like a nod of support from Motor City Machine Guns, which it seems that Hank and Tank have tried to better themselves by trying to learn off different tag teams. So going around different tag teams and basically saying to them, look, I want to improve. This is how this is what I do now. What is it I need to do differently to reach that next level? Which I think we can all sort of learn something from whenever we're doing something, whether this is our schoolwork, whether it is our jobs we get paid for, whether it is our hobbies, like this one being mine. It is a case that we constantly ask for feedback because we want to do better. We don't want to suck at what we do. And it's a case that unless somebody tells us that something ain't right, we're going to keep going until it basically sticks. So, but yeah. So even So after Hank and Tank's entrance, once they're in the ring, the edit that I watched of NXT dips out, and we come back to this match in progress. Now, this is one of my pet hates of the editing of Netflix, is that we are rejoining matches or joining matches that are in progress. And the sooner they get this sorted, the better for me, because just feel like we can sometimes miss out on such a lot from the entrances of the opponents or the beginnings of the matches. However it is that we sort of make that association with the match, we need to see the entire thing, not just the bits that Netflix wants us to see, sort of thing. And this used to happen when they were on when it was live broadcast on regular TV, not just a subscription service. So this has been a long time issue with me, but I'm putting the onus on Netflix because they're the medium that we watch them through now. But yeah, it's a case that, do you know what? I actually really enjoyed this match. Hank and Tank are growing on me, despite the fact that I can't look at Hank without seeing Seth Rogen's face staring back at me. That's how bad it's gotten. Now, once we've got back into the match, we see that sort of Hank and Tank are very firmly in control, and it sort of progresses through the throes of a regular match, really. Some regular tags, really love to see it. Not too many sort of big spots until the end. I saw that Tyreek Igwe got a massive stomp, or tried to attempt a massive stomp to Tank, and basically misses his target, and seems to sort of tweak his knee a little bit. Now, I've got down here that Tank throws Tyson out of the ring as Hank suicide dives out to take them both out at ringside. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen a human fly through the ropes or anything like that. They seem to very much take a lot of heart from, or a lot of different bits and pieces from that's the word I'm looking for, from Motor City Machine Guns. The way they presented that suicide dive was very Motor City Machine Guns to me. And yeah, that's how that sort of progressed through. But we went from there. That was sort of very towards the beginning of the match. We had a lot of back and forth between that point and our next one, which is Wesley distracting the ref so that Tyson pushes Tank off the top rope. So Tank is perched on the top rope getting ready to do a double team move. And this sort of spells the beginning of the end for Hank and Tank. I think it was just purely bad timing to do high risk. But again, top rope is high risk. That's how it's presented to us, and you accept the risk when you go up to that top rope for it. Now, we go from there into the action in-ring. We go from the in-ring action, to the backstage area where we see Stephanie Vaquer and Ava in the trainer's room after, obviously, the attack from Fatal Influence earlier in the night. During that first match, basically. And while we see Vaquer with a fair amount of ice wrapped around her midsection, it is a case that she is very much, I am La Primera, I am the women's champion, I am the representative of the division, and I am not letting this division go down without a fight. So 100% I am maintaining my title defense for later on in the evening, and there is nothing that you or anybody else can say to me to tell me otherwise, basically. And yeah, that was very much the end of that promo. I mean, even at the very end, we have Ava ask the trainer that was attending to Vaquer, like, can she actually go on? Is she medically cleared? And it's a case of, it's completely down to her and her tolerance. So we carry on from there. Now, we go from that backstage promo to a different area of backstage where we see Sarah Schreiber interviewing Fraxium, the NXT Tag Team title holders. Now, the last time we saw them was at Roadblock facing the current TNA Men's Tag Team Champions, being the Hardy Boys, where Fraxium were unable to win their match against the Hardy Boys, but put up one hell of a fight. Now, different things have happened since then. We've had, obviously, main roster have been on their European tour, and Axiom himself actually made an appearance at, I believe it was Raw in Barcelona, where he was called upon to wrestle Gunther, the current Raw heavyweight champion, and in fairness, he had a really good match. If you haven't seen it, we've covered it. You just have to go back to the Barcelona match, or the Barcelona episode of Finishes and Factions in our back catalogue. But I don't have time to wait for you to listen to that episode, as I believe it was roughly about an hour and a half long, if not more. So I'm going to carry on. So fair warning, spoilers ahead. It's a case that Axiom talking about how honoured he felt, sort of following his match with Gunther in Spain. It was his home country. He had family there. He had friends there. He got to wrestle his heart out, and he pushed Gunther to the limit. Like, this guy, he could have quite easily been squashed by Gunther, but no. It was a really well put together match, and I genuinely thought on a few occasions that we were going to see Axiom knock off Gunther, but literally it was not to be. And honestly, all Nathan Fraser can talk about is the fact that he's just a bit pissy that he wasn't there. And it just smacks of jealousy. I'm not going to lie. He's just incredibly jealous that Axiom got this opportunity to go and do this amazing thing, and he wasn't even invited to go and share that glory. And Axiom sort of draws attention to the screen that has been sat behind them up to this point, as we see a live video feed of NXT Men's Champion Oba Femi arriving at the Performance Center, getting out of a car and looking pissed off to fuck. Now, while Sarah Schreiber and Nathan Frazier are taking this site in, Axiom decides this is the perfect moment for me to off I fuck, and off he fucks he does, as he makes a stealthy exit to avoid any more of Nathan Frazier's stinking attitude, basically. And that takes us neatly into match 3, which is our NXT Heritage Cup Championship match. Now, this is our only men's championship match on the card tonight, but it sees Lexus King as the champion defend against Javon Evans. Now, this is, I believe, Lexus King's maybe second or third. No, I have a feeling it's either his second or his third Heritage Cup Championship defence since winning the title. Some weeks previous. Now, Javon Evans, we know, is quite a light-hearted, jovial. He's a 20-something-year-old guy. He's not carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders normally, but we see a massive aggressive streak in him today. And I mean, it's a Javon Evans match. We know it's going to be full of spots. Now, I've got a few listed down here that I was really impressed by. Javon Evans with a springboard Hurricane Rana, pretty standard for Javon Evans as it goes. Evans even does a suicide dive through between the top and middle rope, which is unusual, as we would normally see him do what is otherwise known as a tope suicida, which basically stands for suicide dive over the top rope. Now, Lexus King does pull off a rather interesting move at this point, or at some point during the match, which even commentary are not entirely sure what to make of it. I think Corey Graves ends up dubbing it something along the lines of a fisherman's buster, and goes for a pin attempt off that, which, quite honestly, probably would have won him the match had he actually got Javon Evans' shoulders on the mat, which he didn't have. So because his shoulders weren't down flush on the mat, the referee did the right thing in calling that match, in calling that a no pin attempt until there was a shift of weight. Javon Evans' shoulders hit the mat, and then the ref began to count. So 100% not believing the stuff that, not believing the shit that Booker T is peddling there about the ref being out of position. Ref was in the perfect position to see what he needed to see. Now, I've also got down here that Evans hit what I've dubbed as a disaster kick, and then a 5-star frog splash. And yeah, Lexus King was focusing majority of his offense on Evans's jaw, which is well documented at the fact that it has been well and truly messed up after a rivalry with Ethan Page, which started back before our coverage began, but started sort of mid-December, I believe, when Ethan Page decided to completely decimate Javon Evans's jaw. Now, towards the end of this match, we see Oba Femi himself come out and attack Javon Evans by hitting a fall from grace right onto the edge of the edge of the ring apron, which the ref hadn't seen at the time, as they were King and Evans, were outside the ring. Evans very much in control, rolling King back into the ring, due to go back in himself when he gets attacked from Obafemi behind, and then you're caught up to where we get to now. Because the ref was busy tending to King at this point, he didn't see Obafemi come out. He didn't see Obafemi attack Ethan. He didn't see Obafemi attack Javon Evans. It's a case that all he saw was he turned round, saw Javon Evans on the floor outside of the ring, and Obafemi was there as well. The two events could be very easily misconstrued if you don't have the proper context behind it. So the ref called it right down the middle. 100% agree with the call on that one. But begins the ring out count. And because of Ethan Page having taken a fall from grace right on the ring apron, it is a case that he's not getting up quick enough to make it back into the ring, and ends up losing this match via count out, which is an abysmal way to lose a match. But under the circumstances, I think we can very much forgive the young man for it. So Evans does eventually make his way back into the ring, but makes his way back into the ring having been being stalked by the ruler himself, Obafemi. And as Evans gets to his feet, Obafemi and Evans get into it. As that happens, we lose the lights in the Performance Center. The lights just go completely out, and when the lights are returned to us, it is a case that we see that Dark State have appeared around the arena, or around scattered in among the audience, and instead of them physically getting involved, apparently their very presence was enough to spark utter chaos. But not that Obafemi and Javon Evans were able to see any of that, as they were too busy fighting with one another. Obafemi gets Evans in a position for a fall from grace, where Evans ducks out of it, and unfortunately just really cannot catch a break, as he manages to catch a trick shot from Trick Williams, who comes darting into the ring. And is just complete. Evans is completely knocked out of the ring, and we don't see him for the rest of the segment. Now, it is at this point where we have Obafemi and Trick Williams in the ring together, where they will, everybody just wants them to get it on, get the fight over and done with. Let's get it done. Let's get it sorted. And at this point, every ref, security guard, official in the building comes out to make sure that basically doesn't happen. I think what we're essentially building to here is an Obafemi versus Trick Williams at Stand and Deliver, which is obviously WrestleMania weekend, which is fast approaching. Now, that is sort of the end of that little segment. We go in the edit, it basically cuts out the video and then fades back up on Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley coming to the ring for a tag team match versus the Meta Girls, Lash Legend and Jakara Jackson. Now, this match was born out of the chaos that erupted backstage in the women's division following Stephanie Vercoeur's match at the beginning of the card, or following the conclusion thereof. Now, it's important to know that we found out, obviously, that Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley have a match versus the TNA Women's Tag Team Champions, whose names escape me at this moment, on Thursday. So that would be, if this is the 25th, the Thursday would be the 27th. So on the 27th of March, they have a match for the TNA Tag Team Championship belts. Now, I'm recording this on the 28th and honestly haven't a clue who won. I wasn't even aware of the match until I finished making notes, which was about 20 minutes before I started recording this episode. So I'm not sure who it is who won that match, but I'm sure we will find out on NXT next week. Anyway, this match, I'm always a fan of watching Gigi Dolan and Tatum Paxley and that entire clique sort of perform, because they are so unusual and resourceful and just so unorthodox. It's really entertaining to watch. But having said that, I am a bit of a fan of the Meta Girls as well. They're a bit more grungy. They are sort of really down in the depths of it all. It's a case that they will ground and pound the hell out of you. So two vastly different teams, equally as successful in my view. So really enjoyed this match. Now, one of the spots, and I feel like we're going to do this every time we see Tatum Paxley wrestle, because every time I've seen her in a live TV match so far, she has pulled this weird ass submission move, which is a little bit like a cross between a camel clutch and a rack, where she is literally on her back, on the bottom, suspends her opponent using her arms and legs, and holds in this really weird position. It's difficult to... So you have to see it to believe it, but it is incredibly impressive and incredibly effective as well. Now, I didn't get a massive amount other than this, I just genuinely enjoyed the match. But I did note that at one point the Meta Girls had a rare miscommunication where they did actually end up running into one another. And Tatum and Gigi hit something called a cemetery drive, which is like a tag team finisher, and it was beautiful. It's like a pendulum cartwheel slam sort of thing, but they both do it, so they've got fantastic teamwork to be able to pull something like that off, in my view, and just really, really good to watch. But they got the 3 count to win, which gives them amazing momentum going into that TNA tag team match. Now, the next thing we got was a VT promo featuring Tony D'Angelo, the Don, in that restaurant setting we see him in so very often, seemingly flanked by a couple of goons. I'm calling them goons not because they are in any way sort of goonish, but more to say like hired goons. They are mafia goons. They are muscle bodyguards, essentially. And we then see the rest of the family come in. We see Rizzo, Crucifino, Stacks all come in, sit down at the table, and first thing, Crucifino pipes up and says, "Oh, Don, are you okay?" Obviously, last week we saw Tony D'Angelo was backstage for the 6-man tag match between the D'Angelo family and the Culling, and the Culling ended up walking out victorious because Tony D'Angelo got attacked by Dark State backstage. Now, the Don says he's okay, but he's not happy at the fact that they don't seem to know anything about Dark State. And the Don is very much in the same boat as we are. We don't know a massive amount about them either. So the Don sends Rizzo and Crucifino out to go and get some intel on Dark State so that they are better prepared to deal with them. So it seems like the family is really stepping up to deal with the Dark State problem, if you want to call it a problem. But yeah, one way or another, we're getting a solve to this issue. Now, D'Angelo asks Stax to hang back, and he starts talking to Stax about trust. Now, I very much got the impression that D'Angelo is starting to really mistrust Stax's motives. Whether he thinks that Stax is vying for control of the family, I'm not sure. But ultimately, it's all going to come to a head soon, I think. I don't think the D'Angelo family, unfortunately, has much more legs left in it. Hopefully, they uncover some useful information about Dark State before that ever comes to pass, sort of thing. But we'll soon see. We then go from that VT into a backstage promo where we see Hank and Tank talking to Motor City Machine Guns about what they may have done wrong in their match. And Motor City Machine Guns, really supportive, can't fault them for that, because they basically said, you know what, in our view, you did a really good job, you were just really unlucky. But in terms of getting to greatness, Motor City Machine Guns very much feel like like Hank and Tank are going to be championship contenders soon. They've just sort of got to trust the process a little bit. Very much, they can't afford to continue to compare themselves to all these big time tag team champions, because realistically, it's a case that they're not gonna follow the same path progression as the Motor City Machine Guns did, as the Hardy Boys did, as the Street Profits did, as DIY, the War Raiders, the Dudleys, Edge and Christian. So many tag teams followed so many different progressions. I mean, Team Hell No, one of the most dysfunctional teams ever going, but they secured championships at the end of the day. So whatever they did worked. So yeah, Hank and Tank have just got to sort of stick with it. The payout is coming. They've just got to stay the course, keep up the energy, and they will get there. Next up on the card was the fifth match of the night. It was a men's singles match, which sees Ethan Page versus Andre Chase. And Andre Chase is accompanied to the ring by Kale Dixon and Uriah Connors. Neither of which of much consequence, if I'm completely honest with you. But yeah, it's one of those. But we see the most interesting point to begin with is that this match was obviously born out of a backstage promo earlier in the night where Andre Chase and Ethan Page have some cross words, basically, about things that Uriah Connors about things that Kale Dixon has said. Now, during Ethan Page's entrance, we see Ricky Saints just sort of completely blow past Ethan Page. Now, Ethan Page and Ricky Saints have had crosswords in the past, where Ethan Page is another one of these people that says that Saints doesn't belong, and that he's no good. But Ricky Saints blows past Ethan Page in his own entrance and goes and takes up a commentary position, which is where he stays for the entirety of this match, basically. And even then, when he's on commentary, he doesn't have an awful lot to say when he's there. I feel like it was just an excuse to maybe try and get in Ethan Page's head, potentially, or something along those lines. I think he was actively going out of his way to find a way of getting under his skin, basically. Now, sort of Ethan Page, we've seen it before where he deals some quite clinical damage. It's a case that when he competes, he is very sort of precise with his movements. Nothing is ever out of place. It is a case that everything has a time and a place for when he wants to commit to that move. This, in the case of when you're facing somebody like Javon Evans, who is high energy, high pace, high flying, isn't an approach you want to be able to do. It's a case that you're gonna struggle otherwise. But in the case of going up against somebody like Andre Chase, who hasn't really competed, I think the last time we saw Andre Chase compete, it was a bit of a squash match, to be honest. It wasn't the best showing for him, considering it was mine and Rich's introduction. Now, this version of Andre Chase that we got on this match was a little bit more what I came to expect from the leader of a previous faction, sort of thing. Now, there weren't sort of too many high spots as such. It is a case that we saw Page getting distracted by Uriah Connors and Kale Dixon at ringside, which earned him a super kick to the chops, which, after everything that he did to Javon Evans, I'm always happy to see Ethan Page get kicked in the trap. And yeah, I feel like we at one point we saw some hints of what the old Andre Chase was like when Chase U was a thing, but he very much sort of caught himself. He was in a fight with himself to sort of let that individual loose, but regardless, it is a case that Chase still manages to deliver a awesome looking neck breaker on the apron, as well as a tornado DDT from the top rope. But ultimately, it is not Andre Chase's night to win tonight. It is a case that he took the bump, he took the drop, whatever you want to call it. He took the L on this one as Page hits a twisted grin for a 3 count. And it's after this match that the real sort of storyline stuff gets kicked in. Page and Saints get into a bit of a shouting match, but the shouting match is cut short by none other than Sean Spears and the rest of the culling as they go and blindside Ricky Saints at ringside. And yeah, it's a case that in doing this, Sean Spears pretty much cemented Ricky Spears' North American Championship match for next week, which has been announced. So NXT next week, we get to see Ricky Saints versus Sean Spears for the North American men's title, which is most likely going to be the main event. Let's face it. Now, following on from that, we see a very short social media VT, which is basically a video pulled from X, formerly Twitter, which sees the members of Dark State recording themselves out in the parking lot, being, well, pretty proud of what they've managed to achieve, and reveling in the fact that they don't even have to get their hands dirty to cause utter chaos in NXT anymore. I mean, yeah, what more could you ask for as somebody coming in wanting to cause interference at the end of the day? We remain in the car park, just a different part of the car park, where cameras seem to catch up with Trick Williams on his way out of the building, asking if basically he meant to hit Javon Evans tonight. Now, Williams is sort of unapologetic, but does say that he was aiming for Obafemi. In which case, I think Javon Evans might need to go to Specsavers if he can't tell the difference between the human gorilla that is Obafemi and the human pipe cleaner that is Javon Evans. He definitely hit the harder to hit out of the two. It's a case that you don't get those two mixed up. And basically, Trick doesn't feel that Dark State is his business, even though this is now the second time in a row that they have been in the arena, been present and known at the same time as Trick Williams is out there. And honestly, at this stage, it wouldn't... I floated a theory last week between myself and Rich that that Javon Evans was going to find some way to be involved with Dark State, potentially, just because of his youth and all of that. I've got an odd feeling that Dark State is going to have been whipped up by Trick Williams, and we're going to see that unfold as the weeks go forward. It just seemed a little bit coincidental that the distraction was good enough to benefit Trick Williams, and he seems to have been the only one that has benefited thus far. So, yeah, it's a bit odd. It wouldn't shock me if Trick Williams ends up with Dark State in some way, shape or form, but we don't know anything just yet. Now, this brings us to the final matchup of the evening, the main event of the evening. The Women's North American Championship title match between Stephanie Vaquer and Fallon Henley. Now, after what happened, I will be honest, I'm in doubt of Ava's decision-making ability, as I possibly would have banned the rest of Fatal Influence from ringside to prevent any further involvement, and because that didn't happen, in my view, sort of it just gave the nod for Fatal Influence to get involved any which way they possibly could, which they 100% did. It is a case that we saw pretty much from the offset. JC Jane got involved trying to distract Stephanie Vaquer, and sort of Fallon Henley very much zeroing in on those injuries that they caused earlier in the evening. And do you know what? This was a real uphill battle for Stephanie Vaquer. I mean, even if she hadn't been brutally assaulted after her first match, she'd only really had about 90 minutes, give or take, to recover from that match. And it just isn't. It wasn't ever going to be enough, realistically. Now, it's a case that the numbers game very much plays out and is very much against Stephanie Vaquer, as it was always going to be, realistically. But yeah, I feel like the ref may have missed a few opportunities to have kicked the rest of Fatal Influence out. The ref was more than aware of what was going on. It wasn't that they were completely oblivious to it. I just feel like they turned a bit of a blind eye to it. There was nothing to be gained from that, realistically. But as far as I'm aware, Stephanie Vaquer ends up doing something that we've never really seen anybody do before, and that is she successfully defends two different singles titles on the same night, as obviously she retained her NXT Women's Championship against Jada Parker at the very beginning of the card, and at the very end, despite having to go through absolute hell. And I mean, she gets thrown out to ringside for Jasmine Nix to hit a Nix kick. pretty much square in the middle of the face. And yeah, it is a case that she very much struggles to get any offense going because of the injury she suffered to her midsection during that assault earlier in the evening by her current opponent. So Jasmine Nix jumps to the apron to basically try and cause yet another distraction. It comes at turnabout fair play as Fallon Henley is pushed into Jasmine Nix to knock some sense either into or out of both of them, to then go as Vicure manages, despite the midsection injuries, manages to hit an SVB for to retain the second championship. And Fatal Influence do what Fatal Influence always do. They have an entire grip of sour grapes as they set about just trying to do as much damage as they can to an already banged up Stephanie Vicure, who quite honestly didn't seem able to defend herself at all. Which is when we see Jordynne Grace come out and save the double champ. To the point that I think she picks up, I think it was JC Jane she picked up and kicked Fallon Henley, and then used JC Jane on her shoulders to knock down Jasmine Nix as well. So literally it was everything everywhere all at once, and it was a sight to see. It really was. But after clearing the ring of Fatal Influence, we see that Fallon Henley collects up Stephanie Vicure's defended championship belts, hands back the North American title with no issue at all, but very much makes her intentions known that she is gunning for that NXT Women's Championship as she struggles to let go of that championship belt when handing it back to La Primera. And do you know what? I've actually got a bit of a theory. Now, Jordynne Grace's contract with TNA, when she was previously with TNA before coming to WWE, ended pretty much as soon as she'd managed to get pen to paper with WWE. The transition was almost seamless, and I questioned it at the time, but didn't really have enough to go on. I've got an odd feeling that she's going to challenge for the NXT Women's title and get the NXT Women's title. We're then going to see her reveal that she's worked for TNA all along, or she's going to go back to TNA with that NXT Women's Championship. And I feel like that's how it's going to work. And it's all going to come to a head at Stand and Deliver, which just makes it all the more exciting for us wrestling fans. Now, the action in ring wasn't quite done there, as Jada Parker comes to try and take a shot at Jordynne Grace, but ultimately gets knocked back as the Juggernaut goes into beast mode. And we cut to backstage, where the rest of the women's division was obviously as the same as they were with the first of Stephanie Vicure's matches. They were watching on the monitors, and this was where I sort of had to feel sorry for Ava a little bit, as she was then flooded with different superstars coming to her saying, "I want to be the next opponent. That bitch is mine." And they want a shot at the belt, and Ava's got to come up with a way of trying to determine who the next number one contender is. So I smell a tournament a brewing. And NXT this week finishes cutting back to the ring with Jordynne Grace and Stephanie Vicure nose to nose. Obviously, animosity brewing for both La Primera and the Juggernaut. and we are well and truly on the last ditch road to stand and deliver. Now, I have covered everything, and I mean everything, to do with NXT this week, and it has been my absolute pleasure to host this this episode of the podcast. Now, we will return back to normal form when we review, when we do Finishers and Factions does Friday Night SmackDown from London, England. It's getting ever closer to mine and Rich's home turf here, and we are loving it. So, thank you so much for coming to listen to me blather on for over an hour about wrestling and WWE and NXT, and we can't wait to see you back here again. So, see you later, taters.